His name was Gerald. 61 years old. Retired electrician. Solid guy. No complaints, no drama. His wife told me he had not seen a doctor in 4 years. He went to bed on a Tuesday night, after his usual routine. Dinner, the evening news, a tall glass of his favorite drink, the same one he had every single night. She kissed him good night. At 6 a.m. she reached over, and he was cold. The autopsy told the story. His body had been whispering for years. His arteries were calcified. Not partially, not in one segment, massively. The walls of his blood vessels had become so rigid, so ice-like, that they could no longer do the one thing arteries must do to keep you alive. They could not flex. Every night when you fall asleep, your blood pressure naturally drops by 15 to 20%. That is called the nocturnal dip, a normal, healthy part of your sleep cycle. In a person with soft, elastic arteries, the vessel walls gently adjust. They constrict slightly, maintain adequate pressure, and blood keeps flowing smoothly to every organ. Gerald's arteries could not adjust. They were pipe. When his pressure dipped, blood flow to his heart slowed to a crawl, and it stopped. He did not die from a heart attack the way you see it in movies. No clutching the chest, no collapsing. He died because his blood vessels had turned into rigid tubes that could not respond to the simplest demand his body made every single night. And the thing that accelerated that process was sitting in his refrigerator, something he drank every day, sometimes twice, believing it was completely harmless. That is what this video is about. Not rare diseases, not genetic anomalies. A common everyday beverage habit that quietly destroys your arteries from the inside until one night your body simply cannot compensate anymore. Now, to understand how a drink can do that, you first need to understand what your blood vessels actually are, because most people get this wrong. They think of arteries as pipes, passive, rigid tubes that carry blood from point A to point B, like plumbing in a house. That is fundamentally incorrect. Your arteries are living muscular organs. They contract and they relax thousands of times every single day in direct response to what your heart is doing. When you climb a flight of stairs and your heart pumps harder, healthy arteries expand to accommodate the surge. When you lie down at night and your heart slows, healthy arteries gently constrict to maintain steady pressure. This ability has a name: vascular compliance. It means the capacity of your vessel walls to stretch and recoil like a rubber band with every heartbeat. The inner lining of every artery, a microscopically thin layer called the endothelium, produces a molecule called nitric oxide. Think of nitric oxide as a constant chemical instruction to the muscle in your artery wall. Stay soft, stay open, stay flexible. That single molecule is what keeps your blood vessels responsive and alive. When you lose that, when the walls stiffen and can no longer flex, your cardiovascular system loses its ability to adapt to anything. Blood pressure swings that a healthy artery absorbs without effort become dangerous. Your brain, your kidneys, your heart, every organ that depends on steady blood flow starts receiving unpredictable supply. Here is the part that changes how you think about this. Arterial stiffness is now recognized as an independent predictor of cardiovascular death, separate from cholesterol, separate from blood pressure numbers. Your arteries can kill you not because they are blocked, but because they are hard. So what was Gerald drinking? It was not alcohol. It was not some exotic supplement. It was sweet tea. A tall glass every evening, sometimes 2. And during the day, a bottle of lemonade at lunch, a can of ginger ale in the afternoon. Gerald did not think of himself as someone who consumed a lot of sugar. He did not eat candy. He did not pile dessert on his plate, but through beverages alone, he was taking in 50 to 60 grams of sugar every single day without ever connecting it to his heart. When most people hear sugar and health in the same sentence, they think about weight gain. They think about diabetes. Almost nobody thinks about their blood vessels. But here is what the research actually shows. Chronic fructose intake, the type of sugar found in high fructose corn syrup, in sweetened juices, in bottled teas, in lemonade, damages your endothelium directly, not through blood sugar alone, through a different pathway entirely. When your liver processes fructose, it generates uric acid as a metabolic byproduct. Uric acid at elevated levels suppresses the production of nitric oxide. Remember nitric oxide, the molecule that tells your artery walls to stay soft, stay open, stay flexible. When nitric oxide drops, the smooth muscle in the vessel wall contracts and stays contracted. Over months and years of this, the vessel wall remodels itself. Elastic fibers are replaced by collagen. The artery literally becomes stiffer, less responsive, more brittle. One glass of sweet tea at a birthday party is metabolically trivial. Your body handles it and moves on. But the pattern I see in patient after patient over 50 is daily consumption. A large sweet tea with lunch, a glass of juice with dinner, soda throughout the afternoon. That chronic, repeated fructose load, day after day, year after year, is what drives the remodeling that turned Gerald's arteries into pipe. Now here is the part that connects directly to what happened to Gerald at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night. Sugar does not only stiffen your vessel walls over years, it also changes what happens inside your blood acutely on the night you drink it. After a sugary beverage in the evening, blood glucose spikes. Your pancreas fires off insulin to bring it down. But insulin does something else that most people never hear about. It signals your kidneys to retain sodium. Sodium holds water. Blood volume increases. At the same time, elevated glucose makes your blood thicker, more viscous. It moves more sluggishly through your vessels. Now layer in what happens when you lie down to sleep. Blood pressure drops 15 to 20%. Heart rate slows. Blood flow velocity decreases across your entire circulatory system. In a person with healthy elastic arteries and normal blood viscosity, this nighttime dip is perfectly safe. The system adjusts smoothly, blood keeps flowing, organs stay supplied. But in a person whose arteries are already stiffened from years of sugar-driven damage, and whose blood is thicker than it should be from that evening's glucose spike, the nighttime dip becomes a trap. Slower flow through rigid vessels with thicker blood creates the exact conditions for a clot to form or for an already narrowed segment to close off entirely. This is why a disproportionate number of heart attacks, strokes, and sudden cardiac arrests happen between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. That timing is not random. It is physics and biochemistry colliding during the most vulnerable hours of your sleep. So how do you know if this process is already happening inside your body? Because it does not announce itself with a dramatic event. It whispers. And most people either ignore the whispers or blame them on getting older. The first sign is in your blood pressure numbers, but not the way you think. Watch the gap between the top number and the bottom number. The top number, systolic, is the pressure when your heart contracts. The bottom number, diastolic, is the pressure when it relaxes. In healthy, flexible arteries, those two numbers stay relatively close together. But when your arteries stiffen, the top number climbs while the bottom number stays flat or drops. A reading of 150/70 is actually more concerning for arterial stiffness than 140/90. That wide gap, 80 points, means your vessel walls can no longer absorb the pulse wave from each heartbeat. The wave slams into a rigid wall instead of being cushioned by an elastic one. Second, cold hands and feet that have gotten progressively worse over the years, not from sitting in a cold room, chronically, even indoors, even under a blanket. Stiffened arteries in the extremities deliver less blood to the periphery. Your fingers and toes are the last stop on the circulatory line, and they are the first to lose supply. Third, heaviness or fatigue in your legs after minimal walking, not after a hike, after a trip to the mailbox. Fourth, shortness of breath climbing one flight of stairs that you handled 5 years ago without a second thought. Fifth, waking up with a headache at the back of your skull. That can indicate overnight blood pressure instability caused by arteries that cannot flex during your sleep cycle. If you recognize 2 or more of those, your vascular system is sending you a message. And this is exactly where I want to pause, because knowing what is happening inside your body is only useful if you do something with it. Most people watch a video like this, feel a flash of concern, and go right back to their day. But you can take a real step right now. Care Health is a free platform that matches you with healthcare options, screenings, and clinical trials in your area. Specifically things like cardiac screening, vascular health assessments, and blood pressure monitoring programs. You fill in a short form, date of birth, gender, a few basics. Takes 30 seconds. No cost, no commitment. Care Health finds what is available near you and connects you to it. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on your screen. Just open your phone camera and point it at the code. As your doctor, I would tell you to do this today, not next week. Now back to what you need to know about what all of this does to your heart. Because the heart is always the first organ to pay the price. When your arteries lose their elasticity, your heart has to pump harder against a rigid system. Every single beat pushes blood into vessel walls that no longer give. In medicine, this is called increased afterload. the resistance the heart must overcome to eject blood. Over time, the left ventricle, the main pumping chamber of your heart, thickens in response to that extra workload. That thickening has a name: left ventricular hypertrophy. And it is not healthy muscle growth. It is not your heart getting stronger. It is your heart remodeling under chronic stress. A thickened heart muscle becomes less efficient at filling with blood between beats. It becomes stiffer itself. It requires more oxygen to do the same work. And when it cannot get enough oxygen, because the coronary arteries feeding it are also stiff and non-compliant, it becomes vulnerable to rhythm disturbances. Electrical signals that normally travel in smooth, predictable patterns start misfiring. This is the mechanism behind a significant number of sudden cardiac deaths during sleep. Not a massive blockage, not a dramatic clot, a stiffened heart inside a stiffened vascular system that simply cannot sustain itself through the low-pressure, low-flow hours of the night. The rhythm becomes unstable, the heart stutters, and it stops. This is exactly what happened to Gerald. Years of quiet vascular damage, a heart that thickened trying to compensate, and one Tuesday night where the system had nothing left to give. Now I need to talk about the drinks that are doing the same damage but hiding behind a reputation of being safe, because soda is the obvious villain. Most people know a can of cola is not health food. But what about the drinks you reach for thinking you are making the smart choice? Start with store-bought fruit juice, even the ones that say 100% juice, no sugar added. That label is technically accurate and completely misleading. A glass of apple juice contains virtually the same amount of fructose as a glass of cola. The difference is that a whole apple comes wrapped in fiber. Fiber slows absorption. It acts as a brake on how fast sugar reaches your liver and your bloodstream. When you strip the fiber out and leave only the liquid, that brake is gone. The fructose hits your system at full speed, generates the same uric acid spike, suppresses the same nitric oxide, and drives the same arterial stiffening we just discussed. You drink it thinking you are choosing vitamins. Your blood vessels cannot tell the difference between that juice and a soda. Second, diet soda. People switch to it and believe they have solved the sugar problem. But research shows that artificial sweeteners disrupt the gut microbiome in ways that increase insulin resistance. And several large studies associate daily diet soda consumption with increased cardiovascular risk independent of weight, independent of other dietary factors. You removed the sugar and kept the damage through a different door. Third, flavored coffee drinks. A large flavored coffee from a chain can contain 50 to 60 grams of sugar. That is more than a can of soda disguised as your morning routine. Fourth, energy drinks. High sugar combined with caffeine and stimulants that independently raise blood pressure and increase arterial stiffness acutely, even in young people. The common denominator across all of these is not a single bad day, it is the glass that shows up every single day for years. One indulgence at a party is metabolically trivial. The daily habit is what remodels your arteries. Now there is one more drink we need to address, and this is the one nobody wants to hear about: alcohol. Specifically, the belief that a glass of red wine is good for your heart. That idea has been repeated so many times that most people treat it as medical fact. It is not. The studies that originally showed a cardiovascular benefit from moderate drinking were observational. They compared people who drank moderately to people who did not drink at all. The problem is that moderate drinkers in those studies tended to be wealthier, better educated, more physically active, and had better access to health care. When more recent, better designed research controlled for those factors, the benefit disappeared. The current evidence suggests that even moderate alcohol consumption offers no net cardiovascular protection, and the risks begin at lower doses than most people assume. Here is what alcohol does to your blood vessels specifically. Ethanol raises blood pressure acutely. Every drink is a spike. Repeated spikes damage the endothelium, that protective inner lining, and accelerate collagen deposition in the vessel walls. The exact same stiffening process that sugar drives, different chemical, same endpoint, rigid arteries that cannot flex. On top of that, alcohol disrupts sleep architecture. It may help you fall asleep faster, but it eliminates the deep restorative sleep phases during which your cardiovascular system genuinely rests and repairs. Your heart rate stays elevated. Your blood pressure does not dip the way it should. The overnight maintenance window your vessels depend on gets cut short. Now connect that to everything we have covered. Someone with already stiffened arteries who drinks in the evening is compounding every single risk factor at once: higher blood pressure, disrupted sleep, thicker blood, impaired autonomic regulation, all of it converging during the most vulnerable hours of the night. If you have been drinking daily for your heart, understand that the science no longer supports that reasoning. Your vessels may be paying a price you cannot feel until the night they can no longer compensate. Everything I have described so far, the sugar damage, the alcohol damage, the stiffening, the nighttime vulnerability, all of it becomes dramatically more dangerous after 50. And the reason is not simply that you are older. The reason is that your body's ability to protect and repair its own blood vessels fundamentally changes. After 50, your endothelium produces less nitric oxide. The molecule that keeps your arteries soft and responsive starts declining. At the same time, the endothelium becomes less efficient at repairing itself. Damage that your vessel lining could patch in days at age 30 now lingers for weeks. Collagen accumulates in your vessel walls as part of normal aging. Elastic fibers, the ones that give your arteries their stretch, degrade and are not fully replaced. What this means in practical terms is devastating. The same sugar intake, the same alcohol consumption, the same dietary patterns that your body tolerated at 35 now inflict 2 to 3 times the vascular damage at 55. You did not change anything. Your body changed underneath you. This is where the concept of vascular age becomes critically important. Your chronological age is a number on your driver's license. Your vascular age is the actual biological condition of your arteries. A 55-year-old with decades of daily sweet tea and nightly alcohol can have the arterial stiffness of a 75-year-old. The vessels do not care what year you were born. They reflect what you put into your body. Conversely, someone who addresses these habits early can maintain vascular compliance a decade or more younger than their calendar age. This is not theoretical. A test called pulse wave velocity can measure your arterial stiffness and give you an actual vascular age. It is real, it is quantifiable, and it can change. How old are you? Write it in the comments. I want to know, because the speed at which these changes progress and the urgency of addressing them depends entirely on where you are right now. Now, here is the part of this video that matters most. Because if everything I have told you so far made you think the damage is permanent, that once your arteries stiffen the story is over, that is wrong. Arterial stiffness, particularly in its early and moderate stages, is not a one-way street. Your vessel walls can remodel in both directions. The same biology that allowed them to stiffen allows them to soften again. But you have to give them the right inputs. Start with what you drink. Water is the foundation. Adequate hydration keeps blood viscosity lower and supports your kidneys in clearing metabolic waste. Beyond water, unsweetened hibiscus tea has clinical evidence showing measurable reductions in blood pressure and improvements in endothelial function. Green tea without sugar contains compounds that directly support nitric oxide production. And beetroot juice, here is the mechanism. It contains dietary nitrates that your body converts into nitric oxide, the same molecule your endothelium has been struggling to produce. You are essentially supplementing your arteries' flexibility from the outside. Second, food. Leafy greens, fatty fish rich in omega-3 fatty acids, berries loaded with polyphenols, all of these have published evidence supporting endothelial repair and reduced arterial stiffness. This is not folk medicine. This is documented vascular biology. Third, movement. Walking 20 to 30 minutes a day is one of the most powerful stimuli for nitric oxide production that exists. Every step generates something called shear stress on the endothelium, the physical force of blood flowing across that inner lining. Shear stress triggers nitric oxide release. That is your body's built-in mechanism for keeping arteries flexible, but you have to activate it. It does not happen while you sit. Fourth, sleep. During deep sleep, blood pressure drops, heart rate slows, and the endothelium undergoes repair. That is your nightly vascular maintenance window. Anything that disrupts deep sleep, sugar before bed, alcohol, untreated sleep apnea, robs your arteries of the only time they have to heal. Here is exactly what to do after watching this. Not next month, tonight. Step 1. Audit your beverages. For 1 week, write down every single liquid you consume and check the sugar content on the label. Every juice, every soda, every coffee drink, every bottle of tea. Add it up at the end of each day. Most people who tell me they do not eat much sugar are stunned when they see the number. 40, 50, 60 grams a day, pouring through their bloodstream without them ever connecting it to their arteries. Step 2. Eliminate one daily sweet drink. Not everything at once. 1. The glass of juice at dinner. the afternoon soda, the sweetened iced tea. Replace it with water, unsweetened tea, or one of the alternatives we discussed. Hold that single change for 2 weeks before you make the next adjustment. Gradual here is not weakness, it is what actually sticks. Step 3. If you drink alcohol daily, reduce to no more than 3 days per week, and never within 2 hours of bedtime. Your endothelium needs that overnight repair window. Do not rob it. Step 4. Walk for 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That is your nitric oxide prescription. Every step generates the shear stress that tells your endothelium to produce the molecule your arteries need to stay soft. No gym required. No equipment. Just walk. Step 5. Get your pulse pressure checked. At your next doctor visit, look at the gap between your systolic and diastolic numbers. If that gap is consistently above 60, ask your doctor specifically about arterial stiffness. Do not leave the office without that conversation. Step 6. Request a fasting glucose and HbA1c test if you have not had one in the past year. Chronic sugar consumption and early insulin resistance produce no symptoms until significant vascular damage has already occurred. Catching it in the pre-diabetic range gives you the widest window to reverse course. You cannot fix what you do not measure. Gerald did not have a rare condition. He had a common habit. He drank a common drink. And he experienced a common consequence that is entirely preventable when you understand the mechanism behind it. Your blood vessels are not pipes. They are living tissue that responds to what you put into your body every single day. What you drink matters more than most people will ever realize, and the damage accumulates silently for years before it announces itself, often during the quietest, most vulnerable hours of the night. Nobody in a clinic is going to sit you down and walk you through the connection between your evening sweet tea and the flexibility of your arterial walls. There is no time for it on a 12-minute office visit, and there is no revenue in it. That is exactly why this video exists. Everything we covered today is for your understanding so you can have a more informed, more specific conversation with your own doctor. And remember, that free health screening link is in the description. 30 seconds could make a real difference. Take care of yourself.